Former House Speaker is on our Newsmakers line with us today. Newt, good to have you back with us.
Well, it's great to be with you, and I have to say that I think, unfortunately, your example with the SEIU is a good example of why we need to save America. I mean, you have a left-wing machine which is prepared to use intimidation, which is prepared to bully people, on occasion to bribe people. It is amazing the degree to which the left has now decided they can run over the rest of us, and that we're supposed to be passive and do nothing about it.
And for the police to actually escort them and be there while they're seeing these people, literally troop all over this guy's front yard. His 16-year-old literally locked himself in the bathroom in the home because he was terrified of what was going on. And the police didn't just help it. They assisted this thuggery to take place.
But where was this? Because I had not seen this story.
This is out in the Washington, D.C. area. And again, if the Tea Party descended on some private congressman's home and did this, the left wing's head would explode.
Well, I mean, exactly. If they were on his lawn, they were trespassing, and they should have been arrested by the police, not protected by them.
Yeah, it happened in Rockville, Maryland, at a Bank of America's executive's home. And if anybody's going to be out there, tromping onto people's yards because of the problems in the financial affairs industry, it ought to be, Tea Partiers going onto the lawns of Barney Frank and Nancy Pelosi and the rest of that deal. But you can bet the police would be called and they'd be arrested immediately.
Well, but it's doubly ironic if it's the SEIU, because I think what you're going to see is the next phase of the country's coming to grips with our economic problems is that unions, particularly government employee unions, are simply too expensive. And then no matter how much they bully us, no matter how much they try to intimidate us, they're not going to be able to sustain the deals they've gotten in the past because the country can't afford it. We're faced with a real economic problem at 9.9% unemployment, at almost 20% underemployment. And it is likely to get worse if you look at what's happening in Greece, Spain, Italy, Ireland, Portugal. The Western world is faced with the fact that government is the fourth bubble after information technology in 1999, housing in 2007, and Wall Street in 2008. And the government bubble is probably the biggest of the four bubbles. And we're going to have to go through tremendous changes, and the government employee unions are going to be on the wrong side of virtually every change.
Can we avoid the violence that we're seeing play out in Greece, that we're now seeing play out in Thailand, in Kingston, Jamaica? I mean, we're seeing violence in the streets in places that may be a precursor to what we'll see here.
Well, I think we're going to have to decide as a country that we're not going to tolerate it, that the basis, and this is what Lincoln talked about in all of his major speeches during the Civil War. I mean, the basic rule of law requires that we have a constitutional self-government, which is capable of protecting us from thugs and protecting us from bullies and protecting us from those who would use force to intimidate us. And that's part of what the Arizona law is all about, is that when people saw a rancher get killed, they saw two policemen get killed, they learned that Phoenix had become the kidnapping capital of the United States, mostly Mexican drug dealers. People just said enough, that they don't want to be frightened, that they're tired of those who are outside the law or those who have special advantages imposing themselves on the rest of us. And I think this is going to be a growing mood and a growing movement in this country.
And that's kind of undergirded the whole Tea Party movement as well. People are not just angry for the sake of anger. They're angry with what's being done in our name by our government that's supposed to be answering to us.
That's exactly right. I think people have a deep feeling that things are out of control, and that if anything, the machine that is currently running Washington doesn't listen to us. It doesn't serve us. It runs over us. And you first saw that, and this is the reason I called the subtitle of To Save America is Stopping Obama's Secular-Socialist Machine, because you saw this initially with the stimulus bill, which had $787 billion, and no elected official had even read it. I mean, that's not that even the Chicago City Council would have wanted to have a little more knowledge about $787 billion of spending, but the machine just rammed it through. And then you saw it with Obamacare, where the town hall meetings were so negative, the Democrats just quit holding them. And then the polls turned totally negative. Every national poll for 4 months said the country was opposed. And finally, they lost Teddy Kennedy's seat in Massachusetts, which you would have thought was a pretty clear signal. And their reaction was to turn around and say, nope, we're just going to ram it through anyway. We want what we want, and we don't care what you think.
Now you think that this bodes well for the Republicans, obviously, this fall in the fall elections, that Republicans could pick up massive numbers of seats, possibly even take back control of the House. Does the loss in that Pennsylvania special election where Tim Burns was defeated by Kritz, does that change your view of the opportunity for Republicans in the fall?
Well, it lowers it a little bit because I think that it's always sobering to see an election work out like that. But there were two very unusual circumstances in that campaign that people should have understood better, including me, frankly. And Rick Santorum understood it and warned early on that this was a harder race than we thought. The first is that the Democrat ran as an anti-Obama Democrat.
Yeah, he sounded like you or me or Rush Limbaugh.
Well, he was pro-life, pro-gun, anti-Obamacare. So in that sense, I mean, if I were the Obama White House, I don't know how much happiness I would take out of that.
Yeah, you can win if you run against everything the Democrats are doing, and if the voters are 2-1 in majority Democrat in the district, and if you run against everything and people believe you're really against it, then you might be able to win.
Right. The other thing is, I think that it's fair to say that the kicker in the whole thing was you had a very vigorous Senate primary on the Democratic side and a very vigorous governor's primary on the Democratic side. You had no contest on the Republican side. So the actual makeup of the turnout was more Democratic than it normally would be. And I think that was the final killer. That now we'll see this fall because Tim Burns is running again, and the fact is the Democrat now is in Washington, has to vote. And does he vote with Pelosi and Obama? Or does he vote with the Republicans? I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see which way he goes.
Well, and at this point, Nancy Pelosi has enough of a majority, Newt, to let some guys get a pass, like Kritz and Heath Schuler and some other people they're trying to save as, quote, blue dog Democrats. But even if Republicans don't take the majority back, if they just narrow it to where Nancy Pelosi's operating with a 5-seat majority, she can't give a pass to any of these guys anymore.
That's right. Now, she couldn't. I mean, she would lose control of the House. If they lose 20 or 25 seats, they lose functional control of the House in terms of ideology. If they lose, and I think that I think the odds are even money that John Boehner will be the next speaker. I mean, what people have to confront is, and the news media, of course, is not doing us any favors because they don't want to bring this all into perspective yet. But this is an administration which is failing on almost every front. I mean, it's failing to control the border. It's failing in the Gulf of Mexico with the oil blowout. It is failing to stop Iran. It's failing to stop North Korea. It is failing to control spending. And when you look at all this stuff, and then the effect on the economy is devastating. This president right now is headed towards being the highest level of unemployment for any 4 years since the Great Depression.
Now, you've said he's got a 1 in 5 shot at getting reelected. Do you still stick with that percentage?
Absolutely, because I think in September and October of 2012, people are going to look around at very high levels of unemployment and they're going to look around at very high levels of debt, and they're going to say to themselves, he spent all of that money and accomplished nothing.
Yeah, and dug us a deeper debt load than all the previous administrations combined when you get to about $13 trillion. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, the new book is great. Great to visit with you and catch up with you, and we'll hopefully do so again soon. And again, folks, go read To Save America, Stopping Obama's Secular-Socialist Machine. One of the brightest guy in politics, Newt Gingrich, and we're proud to call you friend. Good to visit with you, my friend.
Great talking to you.